Hi there, Tracy here. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to make this little bookmark card with a surprise inside using products from the August Paper Pad Club and Stamp of the Month Club from Not2Shabby Shop. Let's go ahead and jump right in. Okay, I've got here the products that I'm using. So I'm using the Boho Critters 6x6 paper pad, and this is so pretty. I love all the fall colors and all the little critters on it. So I'll just kind of go through the paper pack. This is one of two in the Paper Pad Club of the month. We've got these little houses with little trees and little mushrooms, which are so cute, which I'm very tempted to fussy cut a bunch of those for my junk journals. We've got some solids, which I love getting solids in my pack, although the patterns on the other side are so pretty too. So yeah, always hard to choose. Whoops, this one goes with back. Let me see, where's this one go? I'm going to be using this one today. Oh, it goes back here, okay. I mix them up sometimes. It is what it is. Little houses and trees, and then the little critters with mushrooms, and the little florals, which I adore small florals. So that's the paper pack. We'll go ahead and put these away here in my little safekeeping place where I can put my scraps. And then we're going to be using the Cozy Woodland Lane stamp set, which is the stamp of the month. And I'm going to be using this little fox and the little hello friend. I've got here a little bookmark, and I have trimmed it down. They come longer, and I buy them as a set on Amazon. And you can make your own just out of a plain white piece of paper. Around the corners, punch a hole, and you're good to go. So this one is 5x2. And then here I have a piece of tracing paper. And you can use vellum, you can use acetate, you know, you do you, friend. Use what you have. I've got here a little, this is a little, I want to say it is 4 or 3 3/4 by 2. Let me write this down here because I knew I wouldn't remember. So I'm going to measure it real quick. It's going to be my aperture anyway. So I'll write this down for you. So 3 3¼ by 2. Okay. So I know that on my next piece of paper, I'm going to need at least an inch around each side. So I'm going to do that on the solid paper. And so I'm going to trim the solid paper down to actually 4 by 5¼ And we'll be using the inside piece too, so no worries there. So we'll do our 4-inch side, and then we'll do our 5¼ And then I'll eyeball and put the little aperture in the middle. And let's go ahead and trim down my little tracing paper here. And I'm just using my other trimmer because it's a little bit long for my, oops, I used the wrong side. Okay, there we go. Because it's a little bit long for my paper cutter, and they just cut better on a trimmer like that. So I'm going to take some Simon Hurley Stellar ink in Guppy, and you could choose any color you want. You could leave it no color. Again, you do you, or use colored vellum. And then, so I just wipe the ink on, and then I'm wiping off the excess, and I'm going to set that aside to kind of dry. It doesn't take long to dry. And now I can continue on after I clean up my mess. Otherwise, I'll have everything orange. And I chose orange to kind of coordinate with the flowers on there. And so I'm going to eyeball this and place it right about down in the middle. And then I'll tape it down, and I'll take it over to my trimmer and cut it off. So I'll be cutting that aperture out. You could just measure and cut it with a knife if you wanted to. So now I need to score 3 sides of this because it's going to be a pocket. So I'm going to score the 2 long sides and 1 short side at 1/2 inch. And you could do this any size you want to. Just make sure you leave enough left over that you have a pocket that you can fold in that's not too tight. So the point of having the little edges there is so that it's a looser pocket. So you could fit more things in there. You could fit a thicker bookmark if you wanted to. You could go to town on your bookmark, but I'm just doing it simple because, you know, I don't need this video to be an hour long. I don't know, maybe you might like an hour-long video, but I don't typically do them that long. So I'm going to glue this piece down, and I'm going to use some liquid glue. And I'm just going to be very careful with it. That's a funny joke, huh? Me being careful. In hindsight, the guppy is not the best because it kind of is a little more yellow than orange, but I'm okay with it. It's fine. It's all good. So I'll just get this glued down. And now I've got my little see-through pocket there. And I'm going to take just a piece of clear tape and just tape it across the top so my bookmark doesn't get stuck or caught on that edge there going in and out. So if I grab my bookmark, see I've got plenty of room there so you'll be able to see it. Could have gone even thinner on the piece with the pocket with the aperture, but I didn't. And I'm going to go ahead and trim this piece down to 4 by 5 1/4. And I'm going to go ahead and glue that down to a white top folding card base. Oh gosh, I love this side too. Picking. It's very hard to choose. But I picked the florals in the first place, so I'm just going to stick to my guns and do my thing here. And keep it at the floral level. And then the little pocket's going to glue on. And I'm just going to take the edges. I'm going to go ahead and burnish this down. You could trim the top part off a little bit more if you wanted to, but I don't want to. I want to leave it pretty long. You could trim it fancy if you wanted to. All kinds of fun things you can do with this thing. So we'll go ahead and get some glue down on here and then just glue it right down. And just make sure that it's good and stuck. Okay, so now I've got my pocket that my bookmark can go in. This is just that extra piece of paper. You could make the bookmark out of the extra piece of paper if you wanted to. So it's the perfect size. Just trim it down a little bit shorter. But I want to stamp and color, so that's what I'm going to do. So I've grabbed the little fox out of the stamp set, and I've got my little mini Misty. And I'm going to kind of, magnet that down, but I do need to make a mask first. So I've got some masking magic here, and I'm going to go ahead and lay my little fox down on the masking paper. Oh gosh, I have a heck of a time with these magnets. And then I'm going to go ahead and stamp that little fox out, and I'm just going to stamp him out with some archival ink. Just what's handy on my desk. And it doesn't have to be perfect because it's just a mask. So I'm just going to stamp once, and then I'm going to go ahead and cut my mask out. And make sure I have my fox placed where I still want him. And I kind of, he's a little crooked for me, so I'm going to reset him. So I want him about in the center, kind of a little bit lower than the center. And I'm going to stamp that with some Simon Hurley Stellar ink in the Black Widow because I'm going to be coloring with alcohol markers. Give it a couple of stamps. And I'll just go ahead and clean this off real quick before it gets stuck on there too good. And I can remove my stamp. I'm done with that. Now I'm going to cut out my mask. And this little fox couldn't be easier to cut out. He's, simply shaped. If I were using a more complex shape, I would have used my Cricut transfer tape because it's super easy to cut out really tiny things without them bending around and getting weird. You know how it does when you're doing paper. But this one works just fine with the paper. So I've got my mask cut out. I'm going to go ahead and pull my little bookmark out, and then I'll lay my mask down. And let's get this peeled apart if we can. Yes, we can. Okay, fabulous. Let me just zoom in here a little bit, and so you can see what I'm doing. And I'm just laying him within the black line. And then I'm going to use a cloud stencil. And I'm just going to use what's left over on my brushes. So I'm using my little blending buddies here. I'm going to start out with blue. And I'm just going to kind of move the stencil around. And this is a cloud stencil. I don't know where it came from. I forget. I've had it for a while. So then I'm going to come in with a kind of a pink. And again, just moving the stencil around. And it has inside masks, so I have those masked off with some mint tape. Let's see here. Now let's go with an orange to coordinate with everything. We'll move that down a little. And notice I'm just rotating, and then I've grabbed my yellow brush because I've decided I want some yellow in here too. Okay, there I've got my sky, and now I need to create my ground. So I'm just going to ground that. Let's cover these up before I have a terrible accident. And I'm just going to use what's ever left over on my brown brush. I don't need it to be super dark or intense. But I do want to stamp the little pine cones like he's laying in a pile of pine cones. And, you know, in hindsight, that doesn't make a lot of sense. That might be kind of painful. But, you know, it's a fox. You never know what they're going to do. So I'm going to plop that back into my Mini Misty. And I'm going to grab the little pine cone stamp. I guess they'd be less painful than acorns. But if you think about it in the woods, that's what there's going to be a lot of on the ground is pine cones. So I'm just going to kind of place it. And I could hand stamp this, but I prefer to use my platform, particularly when I'm using a mask, just to make sure that I get everything stamped down well. So I'll stamp one here, and I'll stamp one kind of back here. I'm only going to do 3. You can do as many as you want, but then at some point you might want to make masks so they don't, you know, overlap each other. And I'm sure that would be a simple mask to cut out too, but I did not do that for this, so we'll carry on here. Okay, I've got my stamping done. I can pull this all out of my platform here, and we'll color that fox up in those little pine cones. So I'll pull my mask off, if I can get that under there. And then I'm just going to use my Ohuhu markers, and this is going to be a way sped up coloring. Typically I'll color off camera, but it's simple coloring. And so just grabbing my Ohuhu markers and, you know, going with my darkest shade first, which is kind of a reddish brown, and then coming in lighter around the face. And then I'll come in with the lightest tone for the top, for where there would be highlights. I'm just kind of blending everything out. And then I've got a 0011 marker here just to kind of shade up the whites. And then I'll just color in the pine cones with one color. And I'll create a little shadow around him and around the pine cones. And then I'm going to go ahead and stamp my sentiment. And this bookmark will be done. And I will use my stamp platform for my sentiment too. I'm just not a free range stamper. No can do. I mean, I can, and I have. I just prefer, I mean, the Mini Misty is easy. The bigger Misty, she's kind of heavy, so, but if my Mini Misty is handy and I can grab it, that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to do the Hello Friend. And it's brand new, so it's still sticky, and that's okay. It's going to stamp beautifully with the Stellar ink. So we'll go ahead and get that stamped down, lightly tapping on it. I'm going to do one more layer, but I'm not pressing. Notice I'm not smushing it. I'm just lightly pressing it. And there we've got our bookmark just about done. We're going to do a little bit more to it, and I'll show you in just a moment. So I'm going to grab my mask again, and I'm going to cover my little fox, because I don't want any, so I'm going to splatter this with some gold, just to kind of give it a fall vibe. So I'm just going to shake this up really well, and I start to splatter it, and then I realize I should probably cover my sentiment too, because the, you know, I don't want any of the splatters obscuring what it says. And I already got part of the L there, you can see, and that's no problem. I can fill that in with a pen later. So I'll just grab a little piece of this mint tape that I've got right here. Reuse, reduce, reuse, recycle, right? And I'll just kind of cover that sentiment. And then I'll continue on with my wild splattering. And I'm just tapping with this little brush. And I'll have everything I use listed in the description box down below. The bookmarks that I buy, and I use these primarily for my junk journals, they came in white and craft, and they came with the little tassels that you'll see me use. So I'm going to clean up there and get ready to put this card all together now. Now we're going to work on the inside here, and this was the surprise. I've got this little piece here. I've got a gift card, and I'm just going to trim the corner off. Just so it kind of, is a little bit more of a corner friendly piece as a tuck. So I'll go ahead and open out my card, and then I'll go ahead and glue the two sides of this little tuck right here and right here. And then I'll be gluing this little strip along the bottom on 3 sides only. If I can pick it up, friends. Let's see if I can find my tweezers. There we go. So it's going to look like that. So it'll hold the gift card in, and it won't slide out. So we'll do the 2 sides. Oh, I love that little bird. Oh my goodness. Now I wish I picked the other side. Never mind. You guys know how the struggle is real with the paper. Thank goodness you get 4 of each one. So we'll lay this one down first. And then I'll go ahead and lay the long piece down. And I'm looking at it, and I decide that I want that little fox. So I'm going to glue just the 2 short sides and 1 long side. And I'm just going to glue it right over top of that, the bottom of that little pocket there, and make sure it's even along the bottom of the page. Make sure it's good and stuck down. You could throw a little embellishment on there too if you wanted to, one of the little critters from the ephemera packs, but I'm not going to. But I am going to stamp on the inside, and for this I'm going to grab my Mama Misty, and I'm going to lay down the card. In hindsight, it's better if you do this beforehand, but sometimes I am creating on the fly, and look, I got schmutz on my card. That's typical. If you get a card from me, there's likely going to be schmutz somewhere. And this says thanks for everything, so kind of going along with my little fox theme. And I'll go ahead and stamp that out in the stellar, and I'll try and erase that schmutz. I'm looking at my hand going, where did that come from? I've obviously dipped my hand in ink somewhere. So get that stamped down, and it came out perfect on the first stamping, so I'm happy with that. Love that little font. So we'll go ahead and pull this out, and I'm going to try and use my glue eraser, but eventually I just give up. Honestly, I'm not really great at sending out cards. I make them, and I pile them up, but I'm not wonderful at sending them out. But I'm going to try and erase the biggest portion of this with my little glue eraser. And you could take a Tombow mono eraser and erase it if you wanted to also. So here you would put your little gift card in. I have no fingernails, so I can't grab anything. And it's not going to fall out. And then I'm going to add my little tassel to the top of my bookmark. And you could double up this bookmark. You could just go crazy and do any kind of bookmark you wanted. I don't want you to feel like you're tied to the products that I'm using. Except for the Not Too Shabby, because, hey, this is a representative of a Not Too Shabby video. But, anything else, use what you have. Use what you can find. We'll get this stuck in there. And it's not going to actually stick. Now my little pocket wants to fail on me. There we go. And that kind of hangs over, and there's your little card. You could embellish more if you wanted to. I like the little orange tassel hanging down. And then the person opens up the card, and surprise, and then there's a bookmark that they can keep. If I wasn't struggling with it and my hands. So I hope you have some fun with this and try this different ways. I would love to see it. I do have a community post tab that if you do try and make this card, I would love it if you would share it with me and all of us. Thanks so much for hanging out and watching my Not Too Shabby video. I hope that you have a marvelous day. And here's some still pictures to kind of finish you off here for the day. Take care. Bye-bye.